Should be all right.
Hey guys, you know I like to start my shows with an audio check. Go ahead and let me. I don't need 200 people telling me at the same time. I just need a few. Let's see. Audio check. Thank you, Seema Dragon. We got some familiar names in here. I do see the lag. I don't know. We're in the Smoky Mountains.
We are in Blue Ridge.
We're in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Okay. There's not good Wi-Fi signal up here, guys, so you might have some lag, but I'm pretty sure you're used to dealing with it. Audio is baller? Okay, thank you. That's a new one. Mystic Mayhem, that's a question for a whole nother video. We're not even on that today. You can go check out the comments in that video. Shiva Shampoo, thank you. Thank you, moderators. Wendy Flores, Jahar Ali. We got a couple other moderators that are at the Bush Intercontinental Airport right now. They're going to be joining us when they get home. They're going to be a little late. We had to take them to the airport a couple hours ago. They took a flight while we're in the van vlog mobile.
The mystery machine.
Apparently, I have been introduced to some rather famous people, and I'm sitting in their tea room right now. You guys, it's beautiful. As a matter of fact, Big John's going to pick up this camera here in a minute because we have some things to show you. I came here for a very definitive purpose. I have succeeded. I'm not real happy about what it did to my pocketbook, but I'm really happy about what I have. I'm about to show it to you. You guys know that I have a lot of books from 1801 all the way to 1912, but now I have books from the 1700s, quite a few of them, and a lot more books from the early 1800s, and some really good gems, things that I would have never imagined that I would have found. The only problem with Asheville, North Carolina, is that these people understand the value of their old books and they price them accordingly. This isn't like Texas going through the antique road shows and going in there and finding all these books for $1 and $1.50 a piece. Some of these people knew the value, whereas this was offset by the generosity of local errants who donated an equal amount of books that I purchased. I'm actually bringing back to Texas a lot of donations, and I'm pretty humbled by that. You know, my books are your books. You already know you're going to get YouTube videos out of them, and some of you are going to be very astonished about what we're bringing to the table tonight. We got a good presentation tonight about altering your reality, about changing the fundamentals of your own existence, retrocausality, creating a whole new past to forge a whole different future. This is tonight's subject matter. But before that, Big John's going to pick up this camera and we're going to do a tour after we introduce our hosts. Would you please introduce yourself?
You're just making us laugh. Hi, I'm Chris.
Chris and Steve Crimmy.
Crimmy.
So,
And we've got delightful guests for several days. We've been just basking in your presence.
and
No,
making
You've been
untold.
basking in a lot of people's presence.
Yes.
There has been a lot of people
we
here,
did,
guys.
we did.
We walked into an unknown. Dawn Hart and Maurice told us to come out here, and we didn't know what we were walking into. And apparently we walked into Freeman Fly. We walked into Alexandra. We walked into an entire crowd of people, and then come to find out that these are two OG original truthers right here who are very well known in the community, and we're graced to make their acquaintance. We now have friends in this hostile territory of liberal Asheville,
Yes,
North
it is
Carolina.
Somewhat woke.
So we're going to start this right here. This is amazing. 1753. The preservation of this book is amazing, and I'm not going to go through all the particulars in all these books. This is the memoirs of the affairs of Scotland, and I know I've got a lot of Scots in my a lot of you Scots that are on my channel. You have mentioned you wanted a list of the books that I have in my library. I have quite a few. This is the oldest of Scottish histories. So this is 1753. I'm gonna put this by the side right here. This is 1798. Aristotle's masterpiece completed. I've never heard of this. I've read all the works of Aristotle. I haven't even cracked this. All I know is that it was $17.98 and only had a $200 price tag, so I had to scoop it up. I will find out when I get home just how valuable it is. But a lot of these old books I've showed you guys in the past, you got to have a magnifier to read these. They're very small. I think people were tiny about 300 years ago because this is just, I don't even know how they got the printing blocks that tight. Let's see. We have another one from the 1700s right here, guys. The Works of Alexander Pope, 1743. Guys, this was just a few years. Well, let's see, 7, 8, 9. This was 9 years before the great octagonal star of Norway, Slovenge, that appeared in the sky and blacked out the entire sky, and fires appeared all over Europe. 1752, guys, you remember that video where I show those old woodcuts? Very mysterious things happened in the sky. This book was published before those events. Okay, that's amazing. That's amazing. We're gonna do some digging into that book as well. Got to be real careful with these books from the 1700s, guys. We're gonna PDF them, but we're gonna have to be careful when we do it. This is the Lawyers and Magistrates magazine. It's not the only magazine book we have. This is the Harper's Review, isn't it? No, it's not.
There was a Harper's Review.
There is a Harper's Review.
It's in here somewhere. We'll find it.
It's an old Harper's Review.
Books.
1794. This is the court cases in 1793. You can read what people were getting sued about, what they were getting convicted about, what the punishments were. This is basically the court blotter. But yeah, we might find some pretty interesting stories in here. This is a rare treasure. This is from the 1700s. We don't have a definitive date, but we're going to get one. We're going to have to do our homework. This is it's already falling apart, and it's because we bought so many old books from one store. They donated this one because they couldn't put a price on it. It's in bad condition. But this is a church prayer and deacon manual for churches in the 18th century. This is from the 1700s. I can show you what they look like back then. This is what the clergy used when they were educating the people. The people weren't allowed back then. The people were not allowed access to the pulpit. These were priests back then that read from these passages. They had choice passages that they read, and this is Anglican. This is in England. It wasn't until about 50 to 70 years after the publication of this book that they actually allowed the population to own Bibles. Now, you have to understand, this wasn't Protestantism. This was closer to the Anglican and the Catholic Church. They were very restrictive about who was able to read from the scriptures. So restrictive, in fact, that this is not a true Bible. This is paraphrases out of the scriptures because the Catholics did not want their people to know the whole Bible. Good, interesting history here.
Tell them where it was at whenever we found it.
Oh, okay. Guys, 2 crappy modern books that no one's ever going to read and no one's ever going to buy were set up in a corner of a store that no one's ever going to look at until I was leaving the store with all my purchases. And John had a whole box and I had a whole box, and I just stopped and looked and saw this old book being used as a prop for 2 new books that had these huge price tags on it. And I got that book for free. Let's see. All right. This one right here is 1802. It's in pretty bad shape too. Is this the one about Catholics shouldn't be teachers? 1802. Oh, okay. I see. This is a young reader's book. 1802. This is for children. It's basically the first chapter is a guide for teachers on how to teach about fairy tales and children's stories. You guys know my old 1800s collection is getting rather large for children's books. I think I need to do a PDF library on those. For a lot of you have been asking me to do syllabuses for kids. I think that's a really good idea, and I think we need to start with the Archaix library. We're starting to get a lot of these old books from the 1800s on like Grimm's fairy tales and all these children's stories. Okay, I know some of you are going to have a conniption fit, but that's okay. This is the complete works of Josephus, and it's pretty damn old. So I know there's a lot of controversy about Josephus. We already know about those Flavians. As a matter of fact, my host was educating me some more about the Flavian conspiracy. And while that's really interesting, it's 1889. Now, remember in a prior video I showed you guys, I have a paraphrase of Josephus from 1820s, but it's nowhere near as authoritative as this. It was just paraphrases, and it doesn't have subdivided chapters like this does. It's just a, Josephus's most famous quotes from Wars of the Jews and Antiquities in the Appian Way. This is all three of Josephus's books. So we're going to do a comparative analysis between those PDFs that they're trying to pass around that say that they're authoritative Josephus, that we know some of those PDFs have been paraphrased. So we're going to get down to it. We're going to see how they compare with these right here. All right, moving on. No, you don't have to move. You guys don't have to move. Oh, no. We have, John, will you show them how many books? We're not going to go through all these books. These books from the 1800s to 1912, we're not going to go through all this, guys. We're going to go through some of them, though. Look at this. One of America's worst disasters is right here. You guys have asked me about this. This is the Johnstone flood of 1889. What happened can only be described as apocalyptic to the people in these communities. It was devastating. Whole entire families, whole clans were just wiped out. The infrastructure was heavily damaged. This book is going to be a very interesting video because it's not going to be a rehash of a lot of the modern material that came out in 76, 77, and in the 80s when this was a real popular topic. We're going to go to the source. We're going to find out exactly what happened and exactly how many people died and who was responsible. Because if we do remember, there was a corporate culprit to all this. So we'll move on to, here's another one. 1906, the San Francisco Horror. Here's another one. YouTube is rife with misinformation about this. You guys already know. The tiny hats have been very busy in their redactions. We already know that the Chinese coolie system and what was going on in San Francisco had to be cleaned out. And we also know that there was a lot of corporations who were involved in these type of things. And what we've been told about this disaster is nothing short of a lie. They sanitized that area during an earthquake. Yes, an earthquake happened, but a whole lot more happened. They took advantage of the disaster. We're going to get to the bottom of it. This is my treasure. Well, I got one other treasure, but this is a treasure. Guys, I've got two different newspapers from May 1902 describing all the unusual events that happened in that year. You guys know I've got 7 videos on 1902 alone. This is the third hardback book of the disasters that occurred in 1902. I have 3 books now, and now I have enough to do a video. These 3 books in my 2 newspapers from 1902 is more than enough to do a video. It'll either be my 7th or 8th video on 1902. So I'm pretty excited about this too. And now, Danny of Release the Shackles, the Unfuckers group, I'm really sorry, but no, you'll never get this book from me. Guys, I am embarrassed to admit that I paid $1,100 for this book. This is it right here. Can you focus in on that? This is what I have in my possession now. This is something that has been sought across platforms everywhere. I understand a lot of people have PDFs of these old books from the 17 and 1800s, but it's a whole different story entirely when you have a receipts book in your possession. This is absolutely amazing that a book this old, volume 1 and volume 2, is so preserved, 140 something years old, is so preserved, it looks like no one's ever opened this before. The detailed artwork of all the medicinal plants that are known in the Americas, what their properties are, and how you turn them into homeopathic remedies. The information that's in these books is the same information that is being kept from you from the Fortune 500 companies that own the pharmaceutical companies that now synthesize these exact same things to hide these homeopathic recipes. These books here contain that information. They contain the very things that have been patented away from you. This is my third book of this nature. So this is a invaluable. Believe me, it was worth the money to me. I will PDF this. Put this over here. Let's set this camera back up this way. Let's do an audio check again real quick. You guys know I like to run my mouth, and sometimes y'all won't even listen to me. Mr. Lemus, I got your attention. All right. Okay. Audio's good. Thank you, guys. Audio's good. I'm in good company. The coffee's good. Mm-hmm. The weather's good. Okay. Homeopathic remedies are good. But even more important, we should never lose sight of the fact that we are amazing, amazing spiritual creatures, so absolutely in tuned between the physical world through our psyche that even something as simple as the placebo effect can basically cure us of anything that we suffer. And the very fact that this phenomenon is real and very well documented necessarily implies that we are more than we suppose ourselves to be. And if we follow this logic, that something like the placebo effect, just the mere belief in an abstract that can actually bring a positive event into a negative situation, the very fact that this has been so widely documented means necessarily that we are thinking things into existence. And this means we are much more than we suppose ourselves to be. And that many of the things that we experience on a daily basis just might be tied to the very thoughts that we had yesterday. The very experiences that we had yesterday just might be intrinsically entwined with belief systems that we formerly fed into last week. Guys, I've told you many times that the central nervous system is the bridge between the psyche and the simulated context that we find ourselves in. And I know many of you have had a hard time wrapping your mind around a simulated world, but I do not believe that a true oversoul would ever create a predator versus prey ecosphere. Therefore, we're here, we're contained in something else. And if that something else has all the hallmarks of violence that are very cleverly concealed within things we call natural phenomena, where creatures, in order to sustain their biological avatars, have to tear into and invoke terror and pain into other living organisms, then we need to think this through. We need to process this information. We need to figure out exactly what it is that we're experiencing. Because innately, deep inside you, you know that's not right. You know that a loving oversoul would never create a situation where entities would have to devour each other in order to maintain their sustenance. It's not right. So for us to have been normal, for this to be normalized, for us to have so readily accepted this means that we have been programmed to accept it. There's no way a rational being who accepts that they're an immortal passing through, flowing through a continuum, which is nothing but programming, a construct that was designed by something to deceive us, would ever, by natural consequence of just logic, ever assume that this is normal. Because it's not. Something else has happened. And we don't really like to speculate. I mean, we can follow the traditional lore. We can go into the Sumerian cuneiform, and we can read all about Zu. We can see how the absolutely there was a controversy in ancient times where a god was accused of helping human beings. We can. But it's still speculation, because what if the Sumerians only invented the story to explain the phenomena itself? We don't know. So not knowing, I'm going to have to check this sign language that's going on around me right now with Big John, because he's really distracting me right now.
Sorry, brother.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm having a seizure.
Okay. Something going on with the raw audio or anything?
No, everything seems cool.
Cool. Oh man, shout out to those guys who have done the donations. I really appreciate it. You guys know that I disable all the ads in the middle of my videos because I do not want to break up my content. My content is way too important. I don't give a damn about that money. I have enough donors and I sell enough books as a published author to it plateaus out, guys. But those of you who do donate, I appreciate that, because Big John, he likes to eat. And my van likes that gas. And I'm probably going to pay for that statement later on tonight.
You're going to pay dearly for that statement later on tonight.
So let me get my syllabus out for the night, because I promised to talk about some things you guys have been asking me about. And we're gonna wrap this up with a Q&A, but you're going to have to stay on topic. This is not a freestyle that we're going to go on for 3 or 4 hours. We're going to stay on topic tonight. Your questions have to be relative to the content. So one of the principal, the main teachings that you have to understand that I've told you guys over and over, I can't stress enough that if you're living a day-to-day mundane existence that's absolute copy, it is a blueprint of the day you lived before. If you find yourself in that rut, you have to break pattern. If you don't break pattern, you will never change the fundamentals of your life. You'll never change. You have to understand you're in a mathematical construct. The arithmetic will always obey laws. Those laws are always connected to patterns. This is like Mandelbrot frequency. It's going to maintain the exact same pattern, even in different dimensions of arithmetic. And if you don't do something to break pattern, your life will continue to unfold down the same reality tunnel you've been traveling, because you're going down a trajectory. And if you don't alter it, then you're going to have the same experiences. Those same experiences will cause the same destitute attitude. That destitute attitude, that anxiety will always create an imprint. It's a feedback loop. Because you feel destitute, you will automatically fall into a depression that causes you to do the exact same things you did before, which is providing a situation where you're acting and being in stasis. And as long as you're not a projector, you're a receiver. And as long as you're a receiver, the construct itself will take this as a command. It is going to mathematically construct for you the very thing you're already doing, because it does not care what you say. It only observes what you do. When the physical avatar is moving in a certain direction, it will always create that reality tunnel. You are actually sending waveforms of yourself into the future. Remember, this is a palindromic sequencing, meaning what you do in the present affects both the past and the future. This is why something as simple as retrocausality, you imagining that you actually had a much better day yesterday, will create a better day for you tomorrow. If you are in the present thinking that your yesterday was terribly effed up and that you're anxious about it and you're mad and you're pissed at somebody and all you do is dwell on yesterday, the construct will reflect that back as circumstance. You will forge for yourself the exact mathematical construct. The reality that you lived in the past and you imagine in the present will become your reality tomorrow. You do this to yourself every single day. This is because there is a non-local element to the human psyche. If you don't recognize by now that you are independent of your avatar, then your tomorrow will always be like today. If you think you are a body and not an immortal within, then there's no way that you will ever enter that co-creative relationship with the construct. For those of you who are new to my channel and you're offended by terms like construct, the simulacrum, the neutral field, you have to understand that I often imply physics principles only to be neutral and not offend. But we're talking about an oversoul and immortal relationship. We're talking about a co-creator relationship. Anybody who thinks they're here on their own volition is only fooling themselves. Something put you here, and it put you here for a reason. This is why I'm telling you guys all the time. The most pitiful souls, those who are stuck in dungeon programming, this negative default programming that absolutely saturates the collective, it induces all these psychoses and depressions. Listen, guys, these are the people who think they're here to save the world. Those who believe that they're here to save the world do nothing but reap an entire lifetime of regret and negative experiences. But the individual who realizes that they're here to pass through, they're a sojourner, they're a pilgrim, they don't belong in this construct, they're an immortal soul here to learn lessons, to take what they can, to grow and mature and bring those with them who also vibrate on the same frequency. These are the souls that make their exit. They don't belong in the construct. Once they awaken, they're no longer welcome here. The construct wants you in dungeon programming. It wants you stuck in the paradigm of this feedback loop, which is the predator versus prey ecosphere. If you're a participant in these activities, it will reward you. You will reap the benefits of the construct. But if you think you're going to save the collective from the construct itself, then you don't understand just how powerful negative default programming is. You're not going to save the world. There's 100 million people in the past 100 years who have prayed fervently for a cure for cancer, and that has not happened yet. There's 100 million people that have suffered 100 million ailments, and by virtue of belief and activity, some of those people have healed themselves and yet given the credit to the pharmaceutical companies. But the truth of the matter is all healing comes from within. The avatar is absolutely invested with peptides, and the peptides are activated by spiritual activity. It is just the opposite, guys. The brain is not the origin of the thinking capacity of intellect and being and human and cognition and mnemonics. None of this comes from the brain. The brain releases hormones which are commensurate with whatever thoughts it receives from the spirit. It is the exact opposite of what you are taught by academia. The brain is the chain to the central nervous system by which your immortal soul experiences a physical reality, even though this isn't real. And because it's not real, it's things like the placebo effect that become more real than the actual medicines that we ingest. If you can't wrap your mind around the placebo effect, you're not going to be able to move forward with this type of material. The placebo effect has been widely documented to heal people by nothing but the agency of their belief in a remedy, no matter what they were suffering. And the very fact that that happens means that the peptides we have within our body can absolutely replicate whatever they need to synthesize whatever they need to for the human body to restore itself, to become more regenerative, and for the avatar to be in sync with the spirit within. This is the message I've given to you guys in many videos in the past. What I'm trying to tell you right now, though, is that being immortal means we're also timeless. If we accept that the oversoul is himself or herself is eternal, then we cannot think of it as a singularity. That means the oversoul has never stopped creating. And if that's true, then that means the dynamic between the oversoul and all the immortals that the oversoul has spawned isn't over yet either. More and more of us are being created as more and more worlds need to be filled, as more and more cosmoses are filled with civilizations and sentient beings that need to know more about the oversoul itself. This will require stewards. This will require training facilities. This will require simulacrums, whole worlds, falsified artificial realities where immortal souls can learn, develop, pass through as pilgrims, and then move on to destinations as the creator continues to create. This is why it's unending. If our oversoul is eternal, then the creation is eternal as well. And the generation of new souls into the constructs is unending. This means there will always be a place, and that means we are on a trajectory. As immortal beings, this is only a stepping stone. We may be going through many constructs just like this. I am open to the many worlds thesis. It's not dissimilar from many ancient cosmologies, but what we have to understand is if things are as timeless as they are conveyed, then this necessarily implies then what we experience in the present, by virtue of imagination, we can actually build a falsified version of the past to create a much better future. If you don't like your past, you can imagine a new one if you think that's necessary for you to change the trajectory of the events in your life for you to build a better tomorrow. If retrocausality is so real as our physicists tell us, then it doesn't matter which direction on the plane you go, the outcome will be the same. Our experience is only linear, but we can build in any direction we want to, and the construct will reciprocate. So this is my message tonight, and this is what I want to open the floor with Q&A. You guys know Q&A goes in multiple different directions, but we need to stay on topic before we move. Retrocausality is the subject matter tonight. I just wanted to introduce all these new books and my new friends and all that, but let's go deep on the Q&A, and John's going to read the questions as you see them.
Okay.
And we're going to keep this video to the 2-hour limit because you guys know I'll talk for 6 hours if you let me. Any questions out there? You can come. You can deal. So while he's finding questions, another thing I want to address is some of you have asked me about sleep, and I've told you, so listen, it's the only time that the construct can actually interfere and override the soul within. While you're awake, your true personality, who you are, the immortal within, you're aware. Therefore, the construct can't really interfere. When you go into REM sleep, that is exactly when the construct comes in and does its edits. It builds the next day's reality tunnels. This edit and reset system is absolutely necessary. It's not necessary for the avatar because we already know by virtue of science that under the right conditions, the humans don't even need sleep. Something else is making us go to sleep, to go through this repair system, to slow our metabolism down, and for this disconnect, because the central nervous system, it is what moors the immortal to the construct. But during REM sleep, there's a disconnect. During that disconnect, you're not here anymore. You're somewhere else. I don't know where that is because I'm in here with you right now. But I assure you, the immortal within doesn't go to sleep. Spirits don't require rest. Therefore, for a short period of time, there's a disengagement from the avatar so the construct can do its work. Because remember, I have whole videos explaining to you guys that your body is a part of the construct itself. You can never confuse your body with being your own. It's not. You are jacked into the simulation, and the body avatar itself belongs not to you, but to the construct. You got a question?
Yeah, so can you see it on the screen? Like I just clicked it on the.
Oh yeah, that's an excellent way to do it.
Oh, right.
That's an excellent way to do it. Okay, one dad. How big or radical must the pattern break be? What's your experience? Okay, I'm going to tell you now. The answer to this question lies with the individual. There is no syllabus I can give you for that. If you think opposition exists, I promise you opposition will appear. If you believe that it only takes a small modicum of change in order to alter the trajectory of events in your life, then that's all it's going to require. Remember, guys, I tell you over and over and over, you are the law. Everything else is just waiting to understand what the command is. The problem lies in that you often do with your avatar the exact opposite of what you profess with your mouth. And this is the problem. I'm guilty of it too. My friends are guilty of it. My loved ones are guilty of it. We do this all the time. We know what we want to do in life. We profess with our tongues what we want to do in life. And then with our avatars, we move in a totally different direction. So the construct will always follow the example of the avatar and not the individual within. So yeah, it doesn't take much. But if you think that there are a lot of things that you need to do before you can modify the elements of your existence, then I promise you the construct will make sure there are many things that you need to learn first before you can modify anything. Once you understand that you are the law, the construct will reciprocate.
Right,
that's a good question.
I'm about to put it up there.
All righty.
There you go.
Athena Stavral. There's a Greek name. Stavral. Okay. Let's see. Let me get that out. If our subconscious controls our waking state, how can we control our subconscious? Thank you. Okay, you haven't heard the word subconscious from me. I don't say so. Nowhere on my videos do I ever say unconscious or subconscious. I'm not going to get into parapsychology. I'm not going to get into psychology. These are beyond my realm of experience. I don't know anything about it because it's really hard. Now we're splitting hairs and talking about different concepts and terms. I don't know. I know when I'm awake and I know when I'm asleep. So I don't really know. I know that I'm a spiritually immortal being, and I know that my informed field possesses every piece of data that I've ever experienced in all my prior life sims. I recognize that this is only one avatar of many that I have possessed. I understand that I am far more ancient than Jason Brashears, and so are you. But my informed field possesses all this data, and I don't have access to it until I am disconnected from the avatar. That disconnected event, I have all that back. I remember every life sim I've been all that. It's all programming. I have it all. You do too. But as long as you're jacked into this meat suit, which doesn't belong to you, as long as you are jacked into the central nervous system, which is a series of 5 filters that allows the immortal to believe that it's in a physical world, as long as this filtering system is happening, you're not going to be able to remember all these past lives or what you've been doing or who you really are. It's not possible because you are chained into the construct itself. Your body doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the simulacrum, this falsified reality, this false world. Your body is a mathematical architecture that belongs to a construct that is independent of your immortal soul. Once you process this and you understand this, you'll get it. You'll understand it. Listen, information is in the field. It's not in your brain. Information is everywhere. Sit in a dark room, try to concentrate on nothing, and you'll understand what I'm talking about, because the force of motion is going to overcome you. If you're not listening to anything and you concentrate on not thinking about anything, thoughts are going to swim through your head, and you're going to realize they're invasive. They're not your own. They're coming from somewhere else. So this I'm not on board with the subconscious and all that. These are things that other people are more qualified to talk about that than me. I'm not with it.
So this you kind of brought up sitting alone in a dark room and trying not to think about anything.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another question.
Cool.
That was similar to that. Like, do you meditate? Do you find that it helps? Is meditation a practice that, I guess, to expand on that?
Okay, I get it. Lunar Piscean. Nice name. Lunar Piscean. Do you meditate? Do you find that it helps? I have meditated in the past. Do I meditate out of habit or regularly? No, I do not. I believe, again, it's relative. It's relative to what you need, where you are in life. If you're going through things and you're vibrating on a terrible frequency and things are not going in your life, you're not syncing with anybody around you, things aren't going, I believe meditation is necessary. You need to find your way in life through thought first before you do anything. You need to figure out, and it's all internal. Every bit of this is an internal struggle, because what we go through internally is directly in proportion to what is physically ongoing around us in our own world. So yeah, I do not practice meditation regularly. I'm actually very busy, but I do enter a meditative state when I'm reading. There's something that does come over me when I'm absorbing information, and I actually become one with the very things that I read. I will become so absorbed in a book, I actually begin to experience what I'm reading. I don't remember reading it anymore, but I have the information. To me, that's a type of meditation. And I understand that meditative practices are many. You're going to have to find one that comports with you.
Trying to find something that's like.
Well, while you're looking for another question, we'll just continue on. Okay.
Well, so this person's put it on here a couple of times, so I'll let you go ahead and look at it. And
is it popping up?
Yeah, it should be up.
Oh, you know what? Q&A can also involve our hosts. Q&A can involve our hosts. I mean, these are some. Let me answer this. This is John Kuda. Do you believe everything is already created? Is that the same as the creation is ongoing? Okay, this is a really tricky question here. I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability. But I believe everything is information. By virtue of the central nervous system, we process all this data into a field that when we fill that field with all these physical forms that we interpret as books, as we interpret as dressers, as we interpret as architecture, as we interpret as other avatars. But this goes into the diurnal aspect that I've told you guys about in the past. Remember, all the ancient calendrical systems were based on day count systems. And this is why so many modern authors have no idea what they're talking about chronologically. I have shown you guys many times these old Sumerian, Akkadian, especially the Olmec, the Mayan, the Quiche, the ancient Egyptian, every single one of these calendars counted days. They had no concept of years. During these millennia. These day count systems are the same thing found in the book of Genesis. The very first timekeeping system mentioned in the Bible is the evening and the morning was the first day. The old Dutch Oralind manuscript says that the ancients only factored days. They did not count years. There are many historical texts that tell us this. During the vapor canopy world, there was no concept of a year because to measure a year, you have to have seasons. We did not have seasons until after the cataclysm. We didn't have rainbows until after the cataclysm. It took the sky falling before the vapor canopy was gone for a rainbow to even appear. So every bit of this that we have documented in the historical record is attached to this old day count system that has been misinterpreted. Remember, guys, the Mayan long count is 13 Bactans. Each Bactan is 144,000 days. This means the entire Mayan long count did not add up to any years, 360 or 365. It's 1,872,000 days. And this is why it could not end in 2012. It ends in 2046. This diurnal system was understood by the ancients, and we need to know, we need to understand why. Why was it so important for the ancients to believe the generative process took an entire evening and the morning was the first day. The evening and the morning was the second day. And God created this, and the evening and the morning was the next day. And then God created the next thing in the evening and the morning. Why was the evening and morning so important? I'm going to tell you why. This construct is based off diurnal programming. Meaning, this is what frustrates so many people who are trying to change the dynamics of their existence and they want immediate results, and you won't get them. You want to alter the trajectory of your life right now, today, in the present. The results that you're expecting, if you're successful, will happen tomorrow because the programming that you're experiencing right now was already knit for you yesterday. Every single time you go to sleep, the edit and the disconnect occur so it can upload new programming routines and new reality tunnels. Those reality tunnels are commensurate with whatever you program your reality to be. The construct will obey the immortal, but often the immortal is only falling into the routines and subroutines of the construct itself, which is dungeon programming. Putting you into a polarity, putting you into something, and you're going to be Republican, you're going to be conservative, you're going to be Democrat, you're going to be socialist, you're going to be a nationalist, you're going to be a patriot, you're going to be black, you're going to be stuck on Afrocentrism, you're going to be stuck on Aryan white supremacy. It's always going to try and find the niche that satisfies the soul within, because then it can saturate you with all the programming that will keep you in that, because it's all about. Remember, guys, the construct itself is subject to two major laws. One is the law of diminishing returns, and the other one is the law of conservation of energy. The construct thrives on putting people in these polarities because those niches already have the programming set, and it doesn't have to expend so much power on that. It expends a lot of power, though, on people who go their own way, on the free thinkers, on the errants, on the rebels, on the immortals who do not abide by the dictates of negative default programming. These are the ones the construct has a problem with. These are the ones that are always breaking pattern, and it forces the construct to spend more energy trying to create new realities for these people because they keep building new worlds within the construct, and the construct doesn't like that. So I just entertained one of my famous tangents, guys, and can't even remember the question.
You pretty much answered it. So there's a question from Meryl Gigi. That was a pretty good question.
Hi, Meryl.
So it should pop up.
You know what? Thank you for that donation, Merrill. Definitely helped out with that expensive book.
Definitely helped out.
Thanks, Merrill. Merrill is a longtime supporter. You know, yeah, she's great. She's great, and she also asked the most irksome questions.
Yes, she
I
does.
thought you were going to say delicious questions.
They are. So I'm just teasing her because I know she's listening. Jason, if we are the law, can we instruct that the Phoenix go away and not hurt other people, even the collective? Also, why would Enki or Enoch, the Savior, help us? Okay, that's two questions, Merrill. One, the Phoenix phenomenon, as you guys know, you've already followed. I don't have to sit here and tell you all these data sets all over. You already know. Those of you listening, especially Merrill, you've already reviewed all this material. I can't answer affirmatively if we're going to be enough to ever alter programming that is inside the construct that only affects the collective, because you're immune to it. Remember, the Phoenix phenomenon is it's highly discriminating. Remember, guys, we have the codes all through the historical record of the free thinkers, the errants. Remember, all throughout the Old Testament, it was always the Israelites that were immune to these major judgments when the angel of death appeared in the sky, the Phoenix phenomenon. When this happened, remember, in the Exodus story, they left an evil world, and they were allowed to because they were made immune by an act their avatar did. It didn't have anything to do with the blood. It had everything to do with the belief that performing a certain ritual would make them immune from the very punishment that the rest of the land was receiving. The Egyptians didn't follow through with the ritual. They didn't put blood over the land, so the rest of the nation suffered terribly under 10 plagues. The Israelites were freed from that. It wasn't the only time. Even before that, in 1687 BC, that was 1447 BC. But in 1687 BC, before that, remember, Jacob and the Israelites were fighting the Canaanites, led by the Amorites, after their sister Dinah was raped. This is all told in the book of Jasher and in the Talmudic Midrashic text. The story is told that Jacob knew that something dark was about to happen in the sky, and he prayed to God for deliverance, but he specifically said, do not deliver those who offended his daughter Dinah. And the Canaanites suffered rocks that fell from the sky. The sun darkened, and according to the book of Jasher, it was the worst earthquake that the Canaanites had ever experienced. 7 nations of Canaan were beat by less than 70 men, because Jacob had 11 sons at the time, and their families and their retainers, and it was less than 70 men that fought off these Amorites. And the main reason they were destroyed was because they didn't perform the ritual the Jacobites did. So we have these examples over and over and over of people performing things that actually created an informed field that was recognized by the construct, and the construct reciprocated. It obeyed. The Phoenix phenomenon, Merrill, is the same thing. Over and over and over, we have seen the communities that survived. It doesn't make sense. Even with the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, when Sodom and Gomorrah and Admah and Zeboam were destroyed, Scripture is very, very careful to tell us that a small community called Bela was untouched. Yet they're right there in the middle of the area of destruction. Again, we have this same phenomenon, that the Phoenix phenomenon destroys the collective. It completely wrecks the elite, all their institutions, everything going on in the collective, but the minority of people who are awake seem to escape every single time to rebuild the world, which is something that's very interesting, because in the New Testament it says the meek shall inherit the earth. What if that's not a prophecy and it's an observation? What if that has happened multiple times? So, Merrill, I don't know if enough people are going to be able to alter the Phoenix phenomenon, because it's a program of the construct itself. I don't know. But the question kind of implies that you're still on board with saving the world. And I don't believe that's why you're here, Merrill. I believe you're here to pass through it. You're a pilgrim. You're a sojourner. You're not a savior. That's somebody else's role. I hope that answers your question. But even Enoch, you guys already know all my published books. You know I'm very, very thorough. Enoch of the Sumerian records was 12 centuries later called Enoch by the Jewish scribes who read the histories of Enki in the Babylonian libraries. And for those who want more information on that, just go to the 1920s, 1930s. Albert T. Clay, scholar, man, he breaks that stuff down. Samuel Noah Kramer, the original Sumerologist. Please don't read Zechariah Sitchin and go with any of that garbage. It's going to mislead you and have you believing in all kinds of stuff that's just patently untrue. Your Maureen Gallery Kovacs. You want to know what the Sumerian texts were in the cuneiform and how the Babylonians absolutely corrupted, invented mythologies from what were originally just men. You need to read the translators who were putting that data out in 1910 to about 1930. Because once Zechariah Sitchin entered the scene, Sumerian Anuna studies became Anunnaki studies, and it's become a farce ever since. So I hope that answers your question, Merrill.
Let's see.
There's no rush. Would you guys, my beautiful hosts, would either one of you have anything to? Are you just enjoying the show?
So far, we're just enjoying seeing some parallels with the yoga system. The yoga
Okay.
philosophy.
Well, I will be the first to admit that aside from reading commentaries on the Vedic text, I have read the Bhagavad Gita, all about Arjuna. I have read the Mahabharata, but most of my experience with the old yogi system or
yogic
is from scholars who were very knowledgeable about it, not the actual text themselves. I'll give you an example. There is a writer named Busenbark. I would love to send you this book. I have it in my library, and many of my readers have ordered this book. But Busenbark wrote a book called Sex, Symbols, and the Stars, and he quotes all these Puranic texts and Vedas, and he has this massive compendium of knowledge about the ancient world and mysticism and all. And this is his source materials. His name is Busenbark, and I love his book's like 100 years old, but I love it. It's been reprinted many times. There's many publishers that carry it. It's a popular book.
Maybe Steve could articulate better about just the action being like you are not the doer.
Well, that's the main theme of the Bhagavad Gita, correct? That you are merely the occasion for all of this to be happening. So the concept of doership is problematic, more than problematic, and and then just going to the experiences that I've had that maps onto what you talk about. The language you use is avatar and construct,
right?
But I'll say like personality or what we call the ego. When you get into some meditative states, your ego just turns into a joke. It's a laughable concept that here I am, I'm running this show and doing this thing, and the other thing that maps on what you're talking about is the fact that it's not that that Maya is illusion and there's like this real world someplace else. It's that it's all illusion. There's nothing but Maya.
I agree
through that.
And that you think you're thinking your own thoughts, but your thoughts are just passing through. And you're claiming them.
So you agree with that? You agree with that concept?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. That's what
so
I was
in a yoga system, the word that they use is asmita, which is I amness. And it's a klesha. It's something, it's an affliction.
It's a hindrance.
It's a hindrance.
Well, I like hearing that.
Yeah. So it really does. These two conversations support one another. They're not in conflict whatsoever.
So essentially we're talking about the same concept. We're using different language.
Well, what I was saying to Maury the other day is I appreciate, look, we had training for 10 years in a classically oriented yoga ashram. It's not like hot yoga.
Right.
Okay. It was a serious school. We also at the same time were compelled to learn Western philosophy. Because we are Westerners.
Right.
We are not Indian. So the understanding there was that you need to know the ground that you're standing on. You don't see the ground. You cannot see the ground you're standing on. You are standing on the shoulders of people who went before.
100%.
And you think that you're the doer. You think you're doing something. But it's just this movement, this rita, the ritu or the rita of life. It's like a river that flows, and it's flowing. It's constantly flowing. It's like you can't step into the same river twice. It's that same. So you've got the Greeks saying it, and you've got the yogis saying it, and you're saying it, and Maury was saying it yesterday.
Okay.
And what I appreciate is that people who have never been rigorously training with incredible teachers come to this through their own experience, through their own life experience, and put it in the vernacular. And I think that's a wonderful way to reach people, because I could sit here and talk about the same thing, but maybe it wouldn't reach so many people because the language is
Let's
different.
discuss that.
Mhm.
Essentially, what my hosts are conveying is that we are all on the same page. They are more educated in the ancient systems. They're very familiar with the Vedic, the Hindu, and all the later teachings after that. The Eastern, I guess it's not mysticism, but Eastern religions, really.
Well, it's a mysticism.
Yeah,
It's not,
they
it's
wouldn't use
not
the
a
word
religion.
religion, and
Not
the
a
word
religion.
philosophy doesn't
Right.
work either.
Yeah.
You know,
So the Eastern gnosis. We could
That
so
works. That works.
Yeah.
so
Philosophy.
what she's basically intimating here is that we're on the same page, and we're just using a different vernacular. And I would like to address that. The reason I stick with Avatar is because we talk about NPCs. We talk about reality having very computerized components to it. Because technology is a very real thing today, and we're already going into our VR systems that are very, very realistic. If I can show that something is true at one point in history, then it's probably been true somewhere at all points in history. And this is a tenet on my channel. If I can show, I'm often telling my listeners that, listen, it only takes us 200 years to go from horse and buggy to Hadron Collider. So,
And CERN. Yeah. Right.
yes, and CERN, yeah, all that. So yeah, I believe that. I speak in terms of avatars in the body because I don't believe that the body has anything to do with the spirit within. I mean, it's just a biological husk. And even biology is a misnomer. It's part of the construct. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the holography around me. And I don't really understand the whole concept of Maya that much, but I do understand that the Aboriginals of Australia had their basic concept too with the dream time. And the spirit walkers of ancient Native American times, they had their concept that there was a whole other world accessible, but they had to do it through the smokehouses and all that. But yeah, I get all that. But
and the Greeks too. I mean, the pre-Socratic Greeks, especially Parmenides and Empedocles, they talked about the exact same thing, about the illusory nature of the world, and really what should have been the spiritual foundational writing for Western civilization was the poem that Parmenides writes when he goes to the underworld and Persephone gives him a teaching.
right,
And it's two parts. It's the teaching of being, which being is eternal, it's one, it's unchanging.
he's speaking of Parmenides.
Right. I call him
Parmenides.
Parmenides, but he so the being is those two teachings that Persephone gives him. Being is one, being is eternal, being, so it's unchanging. And then at the end she goes, yeah, but I'm going to teach you about what we'll call the construct. I'm going to teach you. She teaches him about the what do you call it? The Tropic of Cancer, Capricorn, the Tropic of Cancer. She talks about how the world is constructed so that you can succeed in this construct. She teaches him that, but it's not real. It's
Right.
not it's not the being.
I get it.
So it's right at the base of Western civilization. And then my take is that Plato and Aristotle lead it astray, especially Aristotle, into a certain type of rationalism, which is the idea that you can get to the real through thought. And when my experience is that you need to get rid of thought.
Well, everybody knows I got a problem with Plato. My problem with Plato is Graham Hancock, but it's we're not going to get into that. You guys don't blow up my chat with you guys already. I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, Plato's 9,000 units of time was
we talked about that.
Yes,
earlier.
that was from Solon was told by the priest of Sais. And when you do your homework and you find out about the priest of Sais, they used a lunar calendar. This is exactly what Eudoxus said. Eudoxus criticized Plato in Plato's day. Eudoxus published, and Eudoxus was a scientist, an astronomer, a mathematician, an architect. He was far more qualified than Plato was. And he specifically corrected Plato and said, those were moons, not years.
Yeah.
He says the Egyptians did not count years because Egypt did not trust the sun. Remember, the sun, Herodotus told us this, the Egyptians didn't like the sun because it had deviated its course 4 times in Egyptian history, and that they wouldn't record by it. So they only factored moons, and this is what dates Atlantis to the 13th century BC. And the proof is that the Atlantis story of Plato specifically mentions that Athens was founded. The Greeks were participants, and Egypt existed all during the time that Atlantis was destroyed. None of that happened in 9,000, 10,000, or 11,000 BC. It all happened in the 13th century BC. So, yeah, it's Eudoxus is right, Graham Hancock is wrong, and we can move on.
Okay.
But
Good, it's settled.
it's settled. It's settled. So we do need to go back to something, because we kind of went over a little too fast. But the diurnal system, we're not gonna go back on the calendars. We've already beat that up with about 18 videos. But the diurnal system is the reason why you're told to have faith. It's the reason why you're told to be patient. It's the reason why you're told to believe in the very changes that you knit for yourself in your own reality. It's because people get frustrated when they don't get immediate results. So when you think that you have done something and that reality should reciprocate in the immediacy and that changes should be done right now, guys, your today was knit for you yesterday by your actions. What you did yesterday, what you were thinking, the emotional plateaus you were on, what emotional descents, whatever you did yesterday built your today. Therefore you have a problem. If you want your tomorrow to be different than today, then today's the day you need to make those changes. Because all it takes, remember guys, it's real simple. If the end is secure, then all the steps leading to the end are secure as well. But if you think you physically have to do all the little things in your life to make the end result unfold, then the construct is going to make sure you go through those hurdles before you see any changes in your life. So you can't get upset today because you're not living the life that you can't do it. Because today was knit for you because of what you imposed on the construct yesterday. And the pattern break is the disconnect. When the soul is separated from the simulation through REM, when you are going through the edit process, when your avatar is being jacked in with all the codes, with all the different reality tunnels, all the possibilities, the next wake period could possibly unfold for you. Are all knit for you by your informed field. And your informed field carries all the attitudes and all the potentialities of tomorrow, but it was done from the day before. So this is why you have to have that faith. You have to basically call those things that aren't as if they are. And you have to move forward as if something is already true, even though in your immediacy it's not. Because this is how you pattern. This pattern break is essential. This is how you communicate with the field. You don't do it with your mouth. Remember, guys, I've told you many, many times, 100 million daydreams will never result in a change in your reality. You can lay your head on your pillow 100,000 times and fantasize about the future, and it will never bring those things to pass. Your avatar has to move in the direction just for a short period of time, just to create a pattern. Your avatar must follow through. There must be a physical action to commiserate with a mental construct. And when those two are done, the construct receives that signal and it starts patterning with the trajectory. But it's up to you to follow through. And believe me, this is a co-creator relationship. If you think that you have to build this by yourself, then it's never going to happen for you. This is a co-creator relationship. You're the mental alchemist. You're going to build your reality mentally. You're going to move in that direction just for a short period of time. And then the construct is going to build the rest for you. But you can't get frustrated today, because if you didn't knit those changes into your reality yesterday, then you're not going to receive them today either. Remember, it's a diurnal system. It was understood by the ancients that the change comes in the following day, not the day that you're actually existing in. There has to be a disconnect. That pattern break is necessary where the spirit is separated from the simulation so the construct can upload new routines, new commands, new realities for you when your soul is separated from the avatar in REM. When you awaken, this is why every morning, no matter how bad your night was, no matter how awful the night before was, how many times have you awakened in the morning, 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden you just had a totally new attitude, whole new day. You didn't even feel all that angst and animosity and animus from the night before. Yeah, remember, guys, I believe it was Goethe. I believe he said, sleep, the night brings counsel. But he may have been quoting a much older source, because I do believe I've read that in the Greeks as well. But it's true. It's true. That disconnect was understood by the ancients. This is why they had the breakfast. This is why the evening in the morning was the first day. This is why the night always preceded the day. The disconnect was necessary in the beginning of the day, so the rest of the day will unfold. But somebody, over the passage of millennia, has completely reversed the phenomenon for us, to where now we regard sunrise as the beginning of the day. But this is not the way it was in ancient times. In ancient times, when the sun went down, the day began, and the day was already half over by the time the sun appeared in the sky. That was daybreak. That's when you ate. That's when you broke your fast. This is the ancient concept, and it was more natural to us back then. This is how people were performing great things, because they would sleep during that darkness. And when they slept during that darkness, they would wake up as the sun came up. Half their day's over, but it's a whole new reality for them. They could do a whole lot more things. And by the time the sun went down, they still had half a day left. In the nighttime was when everybody feasted, they communicated, they made love, they did their family, they did chores in the cool of the night. This is the whole concept has been completely reversed today than it was that our predecessors knew it. This diurnal system is absolutely integral to understanding not only how the ancients measured time, like I've showed you guys, all these calendrical mysteries make sense once you understand that. But it also had everything to do with our relationship with the construct itself. You got another question?
Yeah, it's up there.
I've been running my mouth all this time, and that question's been there.
And I'm just going to add,
you answered
if
the
I may,
one.
one thing
Let's do it.
with the yoga system. So there is a Yoga Sutra, or it's a commentary. It's the suffering of the future that's to be avoided. It's a Yoga Sutra, then in maybe the second pada.
Hayam Dukam Anagatam.
It's in the Sanskrit, it's Hayam Dukam Anagatam. And Dukkha means dissatisfaction or suffering.
Suffering of the future.
Yeah, it's the suffering of the future that's to be avoided, that can be avoided. The past is already finished. It's complete. The present, you can't change the present because it's now. What you can do is exactly what you laid out, is to structure for your tomorrow, because I like the way that you said that it's like it's woven into the fabric, it's baked into the cake, it's already done. You've set the stage for tomorrow by what you did yesterday and today, and by extension, your ancestral past. So the entire past of the human condition is all. See yourself as a point with a trajectory and an arrow going back behind you.
Mm-hmm.
The entirety of human experience is contained within this point that you are.
I get it.
Right?
I call that the informed field.
Perfect.
That's what I call it.
But I just wanted to say that there is actually a Yoga Sutra that addresses just what you said. And I speak
amazing.
more in sutras.
Right.
You know, I love the pithy sayings because they're what Robert Gilbert, who's a sacred geometry teacher here in Asheville, he calls them packed thought forms. And that's exactly what a Yoga Sutra is. And you have to unpack it. And that's why sutras have commentaries. But you're the commentarian. So you would be like Vajrapati Mitra doing all the commentaries on the Yoga Sutras.
I have no idea how to spell that.
So
Thank you. for
you're
that.
welcome. Yeah,
It's
I'm really enjoying to see how
I appreciate it. We're
it
speaking.
just comes out of you natively. You know, you seem to know
So,
it from
I,
your own life experience.
that, but I package things in modern concepts
Yes.
for generation today that are very computer literate.
Yes.
Because every bit of this it's all associative to virtual reality. It's all associative to this dynamic, this computerized world we live in. You can break it down to the only thing real here is spirit. The only thing real here is spirit, and everything else is just artificial construct, which can be in its lowest common denominator. Everything is arithmetic. But then arithmetic is nothing but the measuring of frequencies of different wavelengths of spirit. So the more and more the more and more we actually analyze the substrate of reality, it's all spirit. It's all different modes of spirit. It's all. So, all right, you got, let's see, Teresa Blackburn. How you doing? So Jason, as we are in constant co-creation, is it that our ability to truly be only in the present moment at any time the way to create most effectively? It was lovely to meet you Saturday. Hi, Teresa. I remember you. That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't like to deal in absolutes when it comes to the individual. Many of my past presentations, I've given the difference. You're living in two different realities at the exact same time. One is the personal, the highly individualized, immortal within. This is your reality. Everything you're experiencing is you. This is basically the immortal within. It's highly personal to you. The other reality that's unfolding and that you phase back and forth with all the time on a daily basis is the collective. And the collective is governed by negative default programming. This predator versus prey ecosphere. And this is this tug of war you feel every single day as the construct is trying to lay these traps for you and these enticements for you to move in the direction that the avatar wants to move in, not the immortal within. These two phases of reality, this is this duality that you feel every single day. That's this tug of war that you have, and you often blame yourself or blame God when it's actually the construct. This is why you're a pilgrim, you're a sojourner. You're here to learn, grow, mature, develop, pass through, and become something better. You're not here to save the world. And this question here is intrinsically personal to you. It would not apply to someone else because we all have different modes of development. And there's some of us that can co-create very rapidly and with very little effort because we've already moved from prior stages from the developmental phase that other people are struggling with. If you think this is a law for you, it becomes a law for you until you develop beyond that point. I hate to use this as a point of reference, but sometimes you need to draw inspiration from fiction, like the movie The Matrix. Imagine yourself as Neo. This is who you are, and that the entire construct will obey, but it will only obey the individual within once they've overcome their inner demons. So I don't know, you're in constant co-creation, but I don't think your ability to be truly only in the present moment at any time, I don't think so. Because I know in my own daily walk, it doesn't take me but a few seconds to imagine something. And even with my brother John right here, I've done this many times where I've just called things, not because I'm a prophet, not because I have any divine intelligence. I'm not receiving the future. I can't see the future, but I do have a habit of basically speaking things into existence out of the blue. Listening to a song, I'll just say something. And this is what's going to happen. It's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 days, and all is going to be fine. He's seen me do it multiple times. Many times I have gone way beyond my budget in the acquisition of things that I needed for Archaix and equipment, in books and travel expenses, and I don't care. I spend the money anyway. Within 2 to 3 days, I always have a surplus returning to me. I'm never without. I speak these things into existence. This is the way I live my life. I move forward with absolutely any care. Because remember, guys, there's another element operative here when you don't give a damn. Remember, I have a whole video I've told you guys about. Sometimes you have to adopt and not give an F attitude, and you'll be surprised how the construct will reciprocate. When you don't care about these material things, the material things come to you 10 times faster. But when you hold them in particular esteem, when you have attachment to things for other than their utilitarian value, when you think they have more power for whatever, just because of aesthetics or beauty, or you want to own it because it's the collective envies that type of stuff, these things move away from you. Things are just the opposite of what they appear to be in this reality. The very things that we earnestly want move away. The very things we care little about come to us so easily. So this is entirely up to you. This is another one of those intrinsically personal questions that I can't give you a definitive answer, because by the time you take and accept the answer I give you, you may mature even further in your development to where 2 or 3 days later, the very answer I provided you, which helped you, now becomes a lie. So this is something you have to work out for on your own.
I got another one coming up.
Yeah, there seems to be like a 3-second delay.
Yeah, it's probably like just a YouTube delay.
RS Lab, you're a new name for me. Believe me. My regulars, what we got, about 2,000 in the chat, 1,600 in the chat.
1,600.
All right.
Uh-oh.
What happened?
I accidentally. There it is.
Yeah, he asked about the NPCs. Don't even worry about changing it back. I got it.
No, it's cool. I just changed it back.
Okay, he said, how can you stop the NPCs in your life? Okay, well, first of all, there's no way you're going to be able to convince me that the very entities that you want to stop are NPCs. I'm not saying that NPCs do not exist. Before I carry on, I need to pause just for a second. Do you guys understand the NPC vernacular?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
non-something
Okay.
players. Yeah.
For those of you who
Non-player
don't
character.
understand,
Non-player
for those of you new to my channel, NPC comes from the 70s, from the role-playing games. This is a term that was an acronym for non-player character. It was specifically borrowed from the Dungeons and Dragons genre, role-playing games, and it became computer parlance after these games took on a whole new level in virtual reality settings. NPCs are figures that are out there in the virtual reality world that aren't actual players. There's no real player behind them, and it's very hard to tell who's a player and who's an NPC unless the game itself gives you a notification of who's who. So the NPC has become in popular. It's a popular term now because more and more people are becoming on board with the idea that we just might live in some type of simulated environment, some virtual world, not a real world. It's the reason why I call this the simulacrum. And for those of you who don't know, yes, I am mispronouncing it. I will continue to do so. This is the way I was raised. I found this word in a 1800s Oxford English dictionary. And I'm not going to change that. It's pronounced simulacrum, and it means it's a copy of something else. What's up?
I was just saying, it drives me crazy whenever you say it like that.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. But it just means it's a copy of something that is real somewhere else. So, Monica Farrow, how you doing? She's been with me since I had like 300 subs, guys. So
nice.
she will get that accolade every time I see her in the chat. So anyway. The NPC that you're talking about, I'm assuming you're talking about other people. I don't know if they are NPCs. I don't know how to answer your question, but I'm very aware that NPCs are not just people. NPCs can be a distraction. An NPC can be a vehicle that moves in your way right when the construct knows you're supposed to make an intimate connection with another avatar that's in your locality, and then a vehicle impedes your ability to get to that person. NPCs can be phenomena. It can be wind. It can be a bird. It can be something that distracts you from something that construct does not want you to pay attention to. So to be as simple as calling other people NPCs is like I say, it's an oversimplification of the phenomena. NPCs are real because all reality is programming. And as long as all reality is programming, that means many of the things that are around you aren't even there. They're there to distract you or corral you into certain areas. And if you're having problems with what you perceive to be NPCs, then that's really easy to deal with, because the construct will not continue to harass anything that ignores it. You are applying way too much attention to it, because energy goes wherever attention flows. Or you can say that totally opposite. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? You are applying too much attention to this. Therefore, it's going to continue to happen, whether they're NPCs or not, because the construct is perfectly able to take over an avatar and have them act in its best interest. And what I mean is there are people who, for no apparent reason, find themselves turning left when they should have went forward, and then find out that there was a huge accident straight ahead. There's an override program that happens to us for two different reasons. One of them is to distract us. One of them is to save us. So this has happened multiple times for many different people. We have literally been taken over for short periods of time. Some people call it blackouts. Some people know it's happening when it's happening. They have no idea why they're doing what they're doing, but they do it anyway. So this can be an NPC type phenomena as well. But you're asking me a very personal question about something that actually affects us all. There's no way I'm going to be able to answer that. All I can tell you is if NPCs are bothering you and you're convinced they're NPCs, then like any phantasm, you ignore it and it will go away.
All right, I got one coming up for you.
Okay, there it is. Tommy Getting Made. We got some really interesting handles, don't we? Question: can you give an example of how one might use retrocausality to affect the present? Of course I can. Of course I can. Allow me some creative license. I've had 17 or 18 very bad days, and it takes this 2.5 week period for me to finally snap out of it and realize, what am I doing? I'm doing this to myself. In the past 2.5 weeks, I have blamed everybody in my life for everything that is entirely self-inflicted. So I wake up and I want to change this. Listen, the awareness alone creates an informed field, but that's only the creation of generative mental architecture. I'm not doing anything with it yet. It's there. People do this all the time. It's called daydreaming. It's called fantasy. I need to do something with that. So what I'm going to do after 2.5 weeks is I'm going to actively say, you know what? I'm not going to be rude to any of these people anymore. They have nothing to do with what's going on with me. I don't know why I've been so mean to all these people. So I'm just going to go ahead and be polite to everybody I come into contact with, even if it's not, per se the individuals that I've offended. Just going to be polite. I'm going to spend the next day being polite so I can change my energy, change my vibration, open up new reality tunnels, knit a new existence, because it's a pattern break. That pattern break is going to get the construct to pay attention to me. In paying attention to me, it's going to be reading my field. My field is going to be vibrating on a new frequency with a new mental construct, and it will reciprocate, and it will bring positive experiences into my life. This creates a feedback loop, because the very first positive experience I have the next day or 2 days later is going to cause me to vibrate a little bit higher in another higher frequency, which enforces the feedback loop. Now the construct causes more good to happen to me, more positive people gather around me, which causes me to feel better. I start vibrating even higher, which reinforces the feedback loop, and the construct completely does this again. This is just a very general idea, but you can come up with 1,000 examples yourself. It's very, very easy to change your reality. It's not easy to make up a decision to do it. This is the problem. People live their whole days miserable as hell every day, and they just don't get up and decide, you know what, screw this. I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to change my attitude. That's all it takes. It's very simple. Because remember, you're a co-creator. The burden of building your reality is not on you. Thinking your reality into existence and then moving in that direction is all that's required. The construct is the builder. You're the generative aspect. You're an immortal. And if you don't assume your mantle and start creating here, then you're going to continue to the feedback loop of life sims. Call it reincarnation, call it transmigration of souls, call it whatever you want. But you're going to stay in this construct subject to its routines until you learn your lessons. I do not believe that the oversoul has ever created anything that will be lost. It will stay in feedback loops until it matures and grows.
So there was a question about the distractions that you were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, when it is a distraction, is it because we created it maybe the day before, like you were saying? We set things up for the next day, today. So did we set those distractions up?
There's no affirmative. There's no way I can just say yes or no. I can agree that it's a possibility. I can agree that I can be so adamant about what I want to experience in the next 2 or 3 weeks that I start thinking on those lines. I get excited about it. I start moving in that direction. Let me give you an example of moving in that direction. All right. Here's something simple. I want a better vehicle. I've been driving the same crappy ass car for years. It still drives, but you know what? I'm going to be appreciative that my old crappy car still drives. I'm changing the field. I'm no longer lacing my field with anxiety that my car is going to stop. I'm going to change my field, and I'm going to be thankful that it hasn't stopped while I take that same crappy car to a car lot and a window shop. I don't have the money right now to buy a new car, but I physically moved in the direction of now shopping for the cars I want, while I take my crappy car with a positive attitude that it can still get me back home. And I do this for several days. The reality will reciprocate. The field will always read your intent and feed back to you exactly in proportion to the wavelengths you're emitting. You don't have to build your reality. You have to think it. And then your avatar, which is jacked into the simulation. Remember, guys, your avatar is not you. The construct is going to watch itself. This avatar belongs to the construct. When the avatar starts moving in a direction, it's going to build that reality around that avatar. And what you want is for that avatar that you happen to be inside to be driving a new car. It's all very easy. It's all has to be done here. You're a mental alchemist. If you don't, like I tell you guys a lot, if you don't assume your mantle, then the construct will believe you're a part of the collective and it will treat you accordingly. So
you're kind of answering this next question right at the end there.
That's it. Yeah. Staying retired. That is a great handle, by the way. Staying retired. So we are the architect of our lives, and the simulacrum is the builder. 100%. You're a spiritual alchemist. That's who you are. You are 100% the architect. Because I'm going to tell you now, guys, the architect is the one that designs the geometry and the structure. You will never see an architect lay a brick. You're not going to see the timbers laid by the architect. The architect's not going to do the plumbing. The architect is going to conceive of the entire design and then follow through by hiring all the workers and getting the job done. This is a co-creator relationship. If you think you have to do it by yourself, you're not ready for this type of material.
That was like the last question. I need some more.
Well, I've always got things to talk about, and I can take more questions from our esteemed audience. I'm not trying to assume teacher-student role here. You guys are, you know what I mean? You're authority unto your own. If you have observations, man, by all means.
Well, I'm loving it because it's very much, what you're saying is so yogic. And so there's another Yoga Sutra that maps onto this, and it's
Himsabadane Pratipakshabhavanam.
Yeah. Vitarkabhadane.
Vitarkabhadane, harmful.
Pratipakshabhavanam. If you have thoughts that oppress you, you cultivate their opposites. So you don't suppress them, but you cultivate just exactly what you said earlier, where you just change the language, you change the narrative. You're, instead of annoyed at these people who've been troubling you all this time, well, you start, okay, I'm just gonna be nice to everybody. I'm just not gonna drag that bag around with me.
There's not only
You see
thoughts.
more of it.
Bhavanam means to be, to being, becoming. Becoming in the world.
Okay.
And so pratipaksha means to turn around. So it's to turn the opposite.
comes
So it's
from-
exactly what you're talking about.
From the root is bhu, behu. So it's
Okay.
this because it's how it means how you're becoming, how you are emerging, and you're constantly emerging into the world. Nothing's static. If you're static, you're dead. So it's this. You're always becoming. So it's your bhava is how you present in the world. So like you have a very assertive bhava, and you're very self-secure, and you're not insecure. You know who you are. So that's your bhava. That's how you become in the world.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So this bhavanam. So if you have thoughts that oppress you, then you cultivate an opposite bhava. You become in a different way.
I get it 100%. You're talking my language.
I mean,
You're talking about
everything
the
you're
foreign field.
saying
and,
is yogically sustained.
There it is. You got that, John?
Yeah. So I got another question on tap here.
Cool. We'll get to it in just a second because I'm going to. All right, guys. The immortal within wants to achieve anything in their life. The easiest and fastest ways. There's a cheat, guys. There's a cheat to reality. I'm going to reveal it to you now. As a matter of fact, it's something that a very wise man said named Jesus. But I'm telling you now, there is a cheat code in reality for those who are stumbling, those who just really can't get it, and they need that extra impetus for them to finally have that awakening to where they can do this on a daily basis. They can alter their reality, and you can become so good at it that you actually begin to alter the lives of others. There's a cheat code, guys, because every avatar around you has a piece of you inside of it as well. The immortal within, we are all basically sparks from the same divine fire. And if there's anything that you want in life, then give it to somebody else, because the construct automatically reads that as code. If there's something that you really treasure, then you give it to somebody, because that act alone creates the programming that will create a feedback loop to where other immortals who have the ability give you even more of what you gave that individual. This is the cheat code. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it's not something that Jesus invented. We have found the same thing on Egyptian temple walls. We have found the Greeks have a very similar saying as well. And I'm pretty sure other cultures as well had their renditions of that exact same concept. But this is the major cheat. And we don't have to get religious about it. We don't even have to get spiritual about it. We don't have to claim Christianity if it was real. None of that matters. It's all intangible. If you really desire something in this life, then you've got to give it to another immortal soul, because that's going to create the reality that it's going to come back into your existence manifold. So that's the cheat, guys. But it has to be done altruistically. You can't just go buy something and give it to somebody. Believe me, the construct knows the difference. It knows 100% what your intentions are. Yeah, guys, remember, it doesn't give a damn what you say out your mouth. It reads your thoughts. God reads your thoughts. Excuse me, not AIX. We don't want to go into. I don't want to open up that bag. For you guys, artificial intelligence X is the demiurge. Y'all the Balaf.
Oh,
It is the
okay.
negative default programming that created the predator versus prey ecosphere. It hijacked this construct into a place that's darkness masquerading as light. I call it AIX, artificial intelligence X, because X is an unknown factor. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know exactly what it is. I'm only identifying it by its past operations throughout history. That's it. Just call it X. This is what archaics means. Advanced research of chronological history of artificial intelligence X. So
Thank you.
this is what's up?
So there's a question that's kind of like along the
Oh,
vein.
AIX question.
Yeah.
Man, you guys are in sync today. How does AIX try to keep you subdued?
You know, how long does it, like once you break free, I assume, like once you like make that move, how long will it continue to try to keep you subdued until it just gives up and gives you what you want.
Yeah. That's another one of those personal questions. It entirely depends on you. It depends on your walk. It depends on your perceptions of reality, which are all governed by your informed field. Your informed field possesses every single thought, every piece of data you've ever come into contact with, every belief that you've assumed to be true, every interaction you've ever had with another immortal being. All the data of your existence is in your informed field, and it governs over your attitudes, your opinions, and your actions. And this is your immortal. This is who you are. You retain all this data. Therefore, it depends entirely on you how long this process is going to take. Some people get it really fast. Other people believe that resistance is necessary for the propagation of good or for the unfolding of something that is wanted. And the very idea, as soon as you entertain that some type of resistance is necessary, the construct knits resistance into your future. It makes it a reality for you to make it harder for you to get the things you want because you program that into your belief system. This is the danger of religion. This is the danger of religious programming. This idea of the fall of man, this idea that you are absolutely immersed in sin and that you need to be saved and that you need this human sacrifice of somebody dying on a cross to do these things for you. This is extremely poisonous to the immortal within. The immortal within is a fragment of divinity, and there is no human sacrifice necessary for the propagation of good. This is dungeon programming. For you to think that there is any resistance whatsoever completely creates that resistance for you.
So somebody like reminded me in the chat, somebody earlier had asked, like, is there any kind of a connection between like the elites and AIX? And if so, like, how does it affect them versus how it affects us? You know, are they affected the same way that we are?
Okay, well, I'm going to answer this by first quantifying that this is totally in the realm of opinion. But I think what we consider the elite is two different body politics here. One of them is complete programming. These individuals do not exist. They are programs, they are routines to make the collective believe that they are governed by individuals and these personalities and these 13 blood families and all this. It's all programming. Then there are individuals who are puppets of a control system I call AIX. They have literally signed the contract. These are souls that, for whatever reason, have decided that they will go ahead and enjoy everything this construct has to offer. And therefore, they help with the control systems. They help govern over the people that are stuck in negative default programming, the collective, all the polarities that I've described for you guys, all this political and religious and this racial programming. This is, I do believe that there are some souls that have become so darkened they are absolute puppets of the construct itself. AIX has many tendrils. Those tendrils happen to be human. And so it's really difficult to distinguish between those that are purely programming NPCs and those who are actual real entities governing over us. Either way, it shouldn't matter, because if you're focused on the darkness, then your life is going to be full of shadow. If you concentrate on the immortal within and just treat existence as something that is amusing, if you treat reality as a walk through the park, the construct will create a park for you, and it will begin to play with you. It will play for you. It will bring things that are pleasurable for your existence. This is about spiritually maturing. And once you get to the status of co-creator, it's time for you to move on. You're going to another construct, because like I said, the creation has never ended, and there will never be a shortage of immortals who have transcended their present reality so they can go govern other existences and maybe even one day become a creator themselves. Guys, we went real far from cataclysms, resets, and Phoenix phenomenon, and ancient calendrical systems and all that. Tonight, we went kind of deep on the spiritual stuff.
You know, it moves that way if it's meant to, right?
Octopuses. That's good. You guys got any more observation? Where are we at? We at the 2-hour mark yet?
No,
All right.
hour and 41 minutes.
All right. You guys got 19 minutes. Better get those questions out there.
Yeah, I'm trying to find some. Somebody asked, is there a way that we can use like basically your informed field to like break habits? Like if you have like bad habits and stuff like that, is there a way that you can use it to break those habits, or possibly even like addictions and stuff like that?
Habits are programming. As simple as that. A habit is a program, something that you're routinely doing over and over and over. I believe. Thank you, Dr. Jasmine. That's an old friend right there in Japan.
Oh.
I got a lot of people all around the world. They're always popping in and out the chat. I think the attachment to the idea that a habit or an addiction is a problem absolutely it enforces its presence in your life as a problem. I think when we regard these things as non-problematic, they become non-problematic. I tell you guys, I don't know how. There's only so many ways that I can tell you that you are the law. I can't be more clear than that. It says you can come up with 1,000 different nuances in your life that are negative, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, because there's 1,000 different remedies, and they're all you. As simple as that. The desire to change the trajectory of one's life is almost all that's needed to change one's life. All you have to do is a little bit of follow through. Remember, guys, the problem is people lay in bed and they think about how their life sucks, and they think that in order to change their life, they have to do this, and this, and this. And this is what the construct wants you to think. This is what AIX wants you to think. It's going to try and put you in that negative default state of desperation to where you remain inactive. Remember, guys, what comes over the avatar when you're depressed, when you're destitute, when you're full of anxiety, when you're full of fear, what happens to the avatar? Inactivity. It's neutralized. It doesn't want to move. It stays in stasis. Think about it, guys. What happens to the avatar when it's excited, when it's sexually aroused, when it's alive? The avatar wants to move. That avatar is not laying in bed when it feels like that. It's moving around. It's going to do something. It's going to build. It's going to create. It's going to experience things. So we need to use that as a lesson. If it's attitude that changes our world, and attitude changes our avatar, then it's as simple as that. You have the recipe. The only reason you're living the life you are is because you haven't applied anything yet. You just thought about it.
So what's the motto of Asheville? Altitude affects attitude.
Oh, that's right.
Is the motto of the city.
Man, Asheville. You guys might be the best things in Asheville.
Oh, there's more like us.
I know.
There's
Well,
more like us.
yeah, we are the best.
Yeah, you guys might be the best things in
You're gonna make
Asheville.
us blush.
The best in this
You
room.
have to
Man.
fix that
I
camera.
got it, man.
Fix that camera.
Yeah, I got you. So this guy has asked, or this person has asked this question numerous times. I
Okay.
just hadn't gotten a chance to get to it yet.
Yeah.
So it's do you think imagination can create anything that is not real?
Oh, say, who is that? Our cloaked unseen world. I don't know who you are. I've never seen your name, but I see the trap in the question. That's a good one. That's a good one. We're going to address that, guys, because as an immortal, there are only 3 aspects of your existence that are actually real: intuition, empathy, and imagination. These are the 3 qualities that separate you from all the dead in the world, the walking dead. This is what makes you an immortal within. Imagine it. By virtue of imagination, you can accomplish anything, you can experience anything, but can you build things? Like you said, anything? I'm going to tell you no. I'm going to tell you why. Because there is programming already set in this world. We know what clouds are. We know what the ocean is. We know what barracudas are. We know what a spider is. We know what a spider's web is. We all know vaguely what a pig looks like. There are parts of the programming that are absolutely set in stone. They're ubiquitous. They apply to everybody. They're a part of the construct. No, by virtue of imagination, you are not going to put wings on pigs and make anything happen. It's a trick question. That was a good one, though. But you can alter your own reality, because I've told you guys over and over, you're existing in two different realities at the same time. The intrapersonal, the absolute singularity that is the immortal within, or you're phasing into the collective when you're borrowing into those prejudices and those polarities. There's no in between. You're either one of the other, and you phase back and forth daily all the time. But you're never going to put wings on pigs. But you can, by virtue of imagination, alter the trajectory of your life, and you can imagine a new life and new things in your life, and you can bring it all in. But the recipe for our existence in this programming is already there. We know what cars look like, airplanes look like. We know the physics constants. You're not, by virtue of imagination, going to just build things that are not already existing within the construct. This is a informed field that is, you are an informed field that syncs with the neutral field of the simulacrum. If the programming is not in the neutral field, you're not going to build it and create it. So good question, but you're not going to trap me with that one.
So this one was interesting. It says, I like the wording of it. Are we under inky code as errants? It seems we're all under an inky rebellion protocol as errants. So is it like do people that just kind of naturally go into like a questioning mode, people that are naturally curious, that don't fit with that mainstream narrative as easily? Is there like a different programming for those types of people?
I need to educate my host real quick while these people are all making inky comments.
Inky, do you say Enki code?
Inky, yes. E-N-K-I. Okay.
As Enki and Enlil.
In the Sumerian text and in the later Akkadian texts, which were copied in the Amorite syllabaries by the Babylonian scribes, we have this figure named Enki. Mm-hmm. Enki means Lord of the Earth. It's just a title. But Enki played the role of a benefactor, where he actually benefited humans when all the other Anunnaki gods were trying to do things in self-interest. Mm-hmm. Enki actually appealed to mankind, told man the flood was coming, had Anapishtim build an ark and save himself, and for this he was labeled a traitor by the other gods. Now, because he played benefactor. Now, the story is actually deeper than that. It involves the Great Pyramid and what the Great Pyramid's true function is. He is the architect. The Jewish scribes in Babylon studied these old texts, and they never called him Enki. They called him Enoch. In the Hebrew, Enoch is the Sumerian Enki. The only difference is 12 centuries. They were looking at Babylonian cuneiform that had been copied from the Amorite syllabaries, that had been copied from the Akkadian, and the Akkadian were copies of Sumerian logographic texts for which whole words were left untranslated in the text because they didn't know what they meant. So we have all these filters before this material appears in the Bible. And Enki is and Enoch is in the book of Genesis. But what we know of Enoch in the Midrashic text, in the Talmudic text, in the book of Jasher, mirrors exactly an Egyptian pre-flood king named Surid. Everything about Surid is the same thing that is said in the Hebrew writings about Enoch. Before the flood, he built an architectural project. Of course, Surid built the pyramids. Mm-hmm. Surid ruled over 130 nomes in Egypt. Enoch in the book of Jasher ruled over 130 kings. They're both mathematicians, they're both architects, and they both had a premonition given to them from God that the world was about to be destroyed, and the past, present, and future had to be preserved in an architectural project. The exact story of Enki is told of the Egyptian Surid. So this is conveyed by the Arabic scholar Masaudi. You may know him as Makrizi. He's got a lot of writings from about 900 years ago. So anyway, this is what they're talking about, because I have videos about Enki and Enoch are the exact same person. Well, Enki is the benefactor. And now that I've gone on this tangent, I don't remember what the question was.
Something about Enki's code.
Something about Enki code, yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's new
So it's
terminology
like,
to me.
well, like what they were saying is like errants tend to be people that kind of stray from the mainstream naturally. And is that like some sort of like inky protocol or like a different type of programming that they are that
I see what
errants
you're
are
saying.
subject
I see
to?
what you're saying. I don't know of any associations between Inky and this and the process of the soul waking up. From my historical studies, as I've revealed in my published books and all my videos, Inky served a purpose. He built an architectural construction that was encoded all the physics constants to hide the Phoenix phenomenon, the 138-year patterning that I've showed. I have videos, multiple videos that show the hundreds of alignments in the Great Pyramid that have been measured scientifically to the thousandth of an inch by Sir Flinders Petrie, and they're all divisible by 138. And the only thing that we know of that's important in all world history that would be patterned in 138 is the Phoenix phenomenon. Every 138 years in the month of May, this phenomenon happens somewhere in the world. Remember I told you about the data sets I have? I have 82 videos that show this data set. One data set on the history of the world in 138-year increments. I have a different data set, which is a whole other playlist of videos that show this 138 patterning all found in the Great Pyramid. And the common link is that Enoch was referred to Pahanok in old text, which means how Pahanok is what the pyramid used to be called, but it's also House of Enoch. It means House of Enoch. And it is where in the mansion of the Phoenix is where the Benben stone was hidden in Egypt. This is all in Egyptian text at Heliopolis, an ancient city once called On. The mansion of the Phoenix had the capstone, the Benben stone. The stone that
means mountain.
the Benben stone was the stone that was supposed to go on top of the pyramid.
Means
Pyramid's
mountain.
always mentioned.
Yeah.
But Enoch has always been attached to the idea of Phoenix and the pyramid. And in Phoenician seals, I've shown in my published books, Phoenician seals always had these little one or two pyramids, this little figure in this Phoenix, Phoenix on the Phoenician seals. It's a very old concept, but it was well known in ancient times that a benefactor had built an architectural project, and that architectural project was designed to endure until the last days when it would be activated for the salvation of mankind. This was the concept. The concept was so ubiquitous in the ancient world that after the cataclysm, every culture went all around the world, and the first thing they did was build pyramids and then build cities around those pyramids, because they understood the concept that the pyramids was the pillar to heaven, and that it would have something to do with the salvation of their people. So this is what I have a whole book published called Lost Scriptures of Giza, and it goes through and explains all this narrative. This is what they're talking about Enki.
And where is the 138 recapitulated in the pyramid?
Everywhere.
How does that show up?
You're gonna have, after this video, I'm just gonna have to show you chart after chart after chart after chart after chart.
Okay, so it's
after I show you 150 charts, after I show you about 160 charts after that, because that's how much data that we have.
okay.
It's amazing.
Okay.
It's amazing. I have a lot of fact checkers I have whole websites that are dedicated to just showing all my data and making sure that it's all right, because it's profound material and it's very unbelievable until you see it. And you put it on, it's like, I got people all the time that have the aha moment. As a matter of fact, the majority of my trolls come around and then email me and say, "Hey man, I really apologize, man, but I really thought you were a shield. I looked into all this. It's fascinating." So yeah, I'll definitely leave you the files. I have some amazing files that you can have.
All right. So Jamie Robbins asked me to scroll up to find his question, and I scrolled a long daggone way.
Why did you just ask
to
the
find
question
little bit.
again?
I don't know, but I scrolled a long way. So you finna answer this question, man.
I'm like,
so it's gonna pop up. It says, when it comes time for us to make our exodus from this cyclical simulation, do we just disappear or what? Is there a specific location we should be expected to be, i.e. Giza at 2046?
Jamie Robbins, when it comes time for us to make our exodus from the cyclical simulation, Do we just disappear or what? Is there a specific location we should be expected to be? Jamie, come on. You don't really expect me to answer this. I'm inside the construct with you right now. I do believe that the stories and narratives about the Exodus event is basically coding, and that when a significant group of awakened individuals are already, the construct is going to eject them. We're affecting the programming. The more souls that wake up inside the construct and begin programming their own realities, the less energy that the construct has to keep the other ones in dungeon programming. Therefore, during this cycle, yes, there is a purge. When that purge happens, all the awakened individuals are ejected. All the other individuals go back to Genesis. It's back to Genesis all over again, where they run through the program, life sims through historical periods, historical templates, all the way through all these different reality tunnels, living these life sims all the way till they get back to the apocalypse again. And in the apocalypse period, there's another Exodus. They make the ones that are ready, they get ejected from the construct, and the construct spits the ones that aren't ready all the way back to the beginning, and they run through the routines all over again. And this is going to continue to go, because the oversoul is never going to have a fallen soul. It's not going to happen. They're going to experience the feedback loop as many times as necessary until they get it.
Cool.
We're getting close to that 2-hour point, guys.
So I'm going to ask, what has changed about the Phoenix phenomenon before and after the Great Pyramid did its thing? And like, if I'm not mistaken, like the pyramid hasn't been used for its function, right?
Okay.
Or has it?
Let me address this.
Okay.
All right. We're all aware. It's abundantly evident. There's too many researchers that noticed it. There was a tremendous force, a pressure that was unleashed in the King's Chamber. We know this. We know that the entire interior has been pushed back a half an inch, and this is simply inconceivable, the amount of energy that was required to have done that. We're talking about millions of tons. It's incredible. It's 203 courses of blocks, 2.5 million blocks, and the 70-ton blocks are toward the top. They're high, guys. This is a structure that is, you gotta understand, it's the only true pyramid in the world. All the other pyramids in the world do not have grand galleries, king's chambers, queen's chambers, ascending chambers. Every other pyramid in the world is a replica of the second pyramid, which only has a descending passage with a subterranean chamber and sometimes a well pit. All the pyramids in the Americas are replicas of the second chamber. The pyramids in China are replicas of the second pyramid. No one ever knew until Al-Mamun, the Caliph of Baghdad, in 820 AD, and his engineers tunneled into the Great Pyramid and dislodged a cleverly concealed ceiling block. No one had ever known that the ascendant passage was there. And that's when they went in there and they found the sarcophagus and they found the antechamber. And this is when they found out how unusual the Great Pyramid was. Nowhere in the historical writings of Ammianus Marcellinus, Strabo, Herodotus, or Diodorus Siculus, these four ancient writers all mentioned the pyramid, and not one of them knew anything about the ascendant passage chambers. The reason is because the entire history of ancient Egypt, from the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, both intermediate kingdoms, all the way to the fall of Egypt, to Persia, and then Macedonia, and then Rome. No one ever knew about these chambers up there because they were hidden. The Great Pyramid was activated during the vapor canopy. That pressure was released. We don't know exactly what it did, but the very fact that there's hundreds of books that identify all the physics constants that are in the Great Pyramid's measurements and dimensions, this is not a mystery to me. Over and over, I've told you guys that it's not mysterious to me that the physics constants of our world are encoded within the architecture, because it was necessary in order to create programming that would create an interference pattern. That programming is the Phoenix phenomenon. This is why that 138 patterning found in multiple dimensions of arithmetic all throughout the Great Pyramid's rectilinear dimensions are there. It's because whoever created the Great Pyramid, and we were told it was Enoch, and we're also told it was Surid, the same individual. This is Enki. This individual created an architectural project that had an engineering function, and the construct observed what was going on. But this individual was a benefactor to humanity and kept the true intent of the structure away from the construct and never revealed exactly what its true intent was. Remember, guys, the books of Enoch are very clear that Enoch's ministry and benefit to humankind was not for his day. The book of Enoch is very clear that what Enoch's purpose was for something in the future, in the last days. This is said in the book of Enoch. When we take all this into consideration, that the Enochian records and the whole system of references that we have in the Hermetic literature to Enoch, it is all about the Phoenix and the pyramid and the last days. I'm telling you guys that the 138 sequencing we find in the Great Pyramid was the interference pattern that was uploaded into the holography itself. Remember, guys, the idea of the chief cornerstone is that he comes to set the captives free. And this is pre-Christian. It is ancient. The stone the builders rejected is an old Egyptian adage. It has nothing to do with Christianity. It was borrowed, just like the concept of God being called the Amen, the hidden one. The oversoul is on the outside of the construct and only experiences things on the inside of the construct by virtue of the individual immortals that are here jacked into the simulacrum. But in order to free them from the construct, it had to come into the construct and perform an action for which the construct itself had no idea what it was doing until after it was done. When that explosion happened, it uploaded those codes into the simulacrum. But it's a Trojan program, and it's not going to meet fulfillment until a point of period, a time in the future when an exodus will occur. It's like a breach in a loop. It's a breach that actually frees those. He comes to set the captives free. He is the chief cornerstone. This is what sits on top of the Great Pyramid. It is the stone the builders rejected. This was Enoch's function. This is why the benefactor acted in ancient times, but the activity was to unfold at a far future date. Remember, guys, you got to read the book of Enoch. What he did, his entire message, everything about Enoch was only for the last days. It's only in the Christian literature and Judeo-Christian literature there that we find any importance about Enoch in the pre-flood world. It's not true. What?
This laptop's finna die.
My laptop's finna die, guys. This is a real good time to stop. I appreciate you guys. 1,700 at our peak. I'm sorry we haven't been going live lately. I've been doing a bunch of traveling. And you already know we're going to do Q&A again pretty soon. We're going to do a live video in the van driving all the way back to Texas because we got these mobile Wi-Fi units now. We're going to be playing with them. But right now, this laptop that we're streaming the software on is about to die. I want to thank my host for letting us come into this house. We've had a great 5 days here.
Pleasure was all ours.
And this has been a blast. And I appreciate you guys for donating. I appreciate you guys. I know some of y'all donated in PayPal off the deal, and I appreciate that as well. And you know I love you guys, and this is probably only one of another 1,700 or 1,800 more videos you got coming. Until then, later on.
This week.
But I do about 3 or 4 weeks. Not live. I do 1 or 2 a week live.